Hello, welcome to another episode of Despite the Challenges, a show where we showcase amazing people with the stories of overcoming their impediments, difficult circumstances, adversities, and a lot more. Not only they overcome, turn their own lives around, but they find many ways to contribute to the society. Today, my guest is a fitness trainer. Over 30 years of his experiences in fitness training, he found right after his 40th birthday, injured while working out. During his recovery process, not only he found various ways to overcome, heal himself, but a very innovative way of joint-friendly training that he has written a book about, and he's here at our studio today. We'll hear more from Bill directly. Bill, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hey, so tell us your story.
Well, I've been a personal trainer. I started in 1983.
Okay.
And I got into it because I had been working in a Wall Street bank, and it just wasn't for me, not very gratifying at all. So I looked to something I was genuinely interested in, which happened to be exercise, and I stumbled onto the first place that did personal training commercially in New York City.
Okay.
And since their hiring standards were fairly low at the time, I was able to get a job there as a trainer. So I worked in all their facilities, and then I worked on the business side of things. And I learned a real tremendous amount in those 4 years. But in spite of that, and in spite of any other experience I had, years later, around my 40th birthday, I ruptured my own biceps and triceps while I was exercising myself.
Okay. That was not at the studio, though. Not
That
at
was
the
in my own
center.
basement.
Okay.
I had no one to blame but myself. And since I thought with all that experience and education that I knew what I was doing, it really got my attention. So I put all my exercise books aside, and I went to my physical therapist friends' libraries
Okay.
and looked up, tried to figure out what went wrong. Like, what did, how did this happen? I had all this exercise experience, and I'd been certified. And what I found was very alarming, because a lot of what we had been doing as exercise at the time was contradicted by what I found in the anatomy and biomechanics books, as far as safely using your joints.
Okay. So were you in the need of medical treatment at the time? Was painful? What exactly those symptoms meant?
Well, what it meant, the first thing it meant when I ruptured the bicep is I heard a little, and I didn't have
Snap.
any pain, but I felt a little slithering. So I put the weight down and I pulled my sleeve up, and there was a black and blue golf ball.
Oh.
So I said, well, that's not right. And then on the tricep, that I fell, and I landed on my forearm, and I knew instantly that I tore something, because that hurt a lot.
Okay.
So I think nowadays they repair that, but at the time the thinking was that other muscles compensate for those ruptures,
Okay.
so it wasn't necessary to repair it.
So in other words, would it hinder you in any way with the normal functions of your
No,
arms?
it wouldn't. What would happen is the rest of the muscles would pick up the slack
Okay.
from the particular injuries I had. So cosmetically it was noticeable.
Okay.
But I was a big boy, so I figured I would,
You can
I
handle
figured
it.
I would handle it.
Yes.
But what was interesting is, so not only was I trying to figure out what went wrong, but when I got out of pain and I started to work out again, in some exercises I was just as strong as I had been previously, but in others I couldn't even get into position. So I knew there was something more in play than what I had learned as exercise, which is what led me to the therapist's bookshelf. So I kind of rebuilt my own exercise program mainly so I would avoid vulnerable joint positions.
Okay.
And so once I rebuilt everything I was doing for myself, I realized, wow, I have a book here, or I have a manual,
Aha.
because I wrote it all out.
That's going through the additional material
Yes.
out of other books plus experimenting on yourself.
Exactly. So what I did, so actually what I did was, since those textbooks aren't really written with working out in mind, what I did was I would start with a conventional exercise, and then I would go through the textbooks to see, okay, what about this exercise either puts the joint in a vulnerable position, can I adjust it, or should I just not do this exercise? So I was doing this for myself. I was just doing this so I could continue to exercise.
So you were your own lab.
I was my own, right. And then when I finished, I realized, well, I have like a body of work here. And since I was a trainer, I was able to use it with clients. And I was able to tell other trainers what I was doing. So eventually I put it together in actual words and pictures and binding. That was the first manual I wrote. And that got a little bit, that was in 2003. That got a little bit of notoriety among other trainers my age.
Okay.
Because many of them called me and said, boy, I've been having the same problems with my shoulders, my elbows, my knees. And what you wrote here explained what the problem is and how to fix it.
Okay.
That led to giving some talks, which led to some videos, which led to another book, which led to another blog, which led to... and then ultimately what it led to was me opening a studio where I could deliver my approach when I'm working out training clients.
Okay.
Because what happens too in a commercial gym, there's a lot going on, not all of which is entirely safe.
When you say not entirely safe, is it not monitored properly or not, or clients are not educated properly?
Well,
or
it's not monitored properly, or it's haphazardly monitored, let's put it that way.
Okay.
So it's not that everyone in a commercial gym is doing it wrong, but there's enough going wrong that it's easy to copy the wrong thing.
Okay.
Or the movement or the machine by definition contradicts a healthy muscle and joint function.
Okay. So that could be a lack of guidance or training as well.
Well, it's the whole orientation is different. A lot of it, what happens in commercial gyms, the orientation is on performance and on entertainment, physical entertainment. It's not necessarily working around someone might have a shoulder problem or a back problem. What happens in a commercial environment, people have to fit the activity, and most of us don't.
That's very interesting because I had auto accident before 16 years ago. Prior to that, I had lower back issues, and I avoid any type of exercise intentionally that I know is going to put pressure, because not that every exercise could be harmful, because I don't have the right information.
That's right. That's right.
And I avoid it.
And you need the information that's right for your set
Yes.
of concerns,
Not
not broad
Yes.
not broad information like just go into class and follow along. No,
Yes.
you need to know the movements that you should avoid, or on the other hand, the movements that you should include to make the injured area stronger. And that takes a little more, it takes, number one, the trainer has to want to do that. Like the trainer has to want to work with you,
Yes.
as opposed to, I'm a power lifter, I'm a bodybuilder, I'm a mud runner, I'm a CrossFit athlete. So if you're training with me, you want to train the way I train myself.
Yes.
So I don't do
Or
that. So
what suits me.
I treat it like I'm a consultant.
Okay.
So I have a lot of experience in training techniques and in training people and training different environments, but the purpose of that experience is to figure out what you or that person needs, not to be a clone of me.
Exactly. Or follow exactly this exercise shape, posture, or
Right. For instance, like if you go to if you go to a karate class or a yoga class, you're going to learn that material. You fit into that material,
Yes.
or you don't, or you drop out.
yes.
The way, and some people look at personal training the same way. You fit into the material or you drop out. But I look at it I look at it differently. I look at it as a consultant. You're going to the trainer because the trainer should know enough exercises that he can figure out how you can get a good workout without re-injuring yourself.
Okay, so in your consulting exercise or process, you understand what clients' limitations are or strengths.
Yes, probably better than clients sometimes,
Okay.
because like all of that research I did for my own purposes, I couldn't help but absorb. So, for instance, a spine works only so many different ways, but not a lot of exercises match that.
Okay.
So someone comes to me with a previous spine injury, I'm going to know, okay, we're probably never going to do this group of exercises because that's going to be very, very challenging and not in a good way to the spine. But here's another set of exercises we can do so we can work around it.
Okay. All right.
So something, and sometimes the client doesn't have the vocabulary to explain what the problem is.
I can fully understand that because if they are not familiar with some of the terminology of the exercising or the fitness word,
Right.
but just want to be fit or do
That's right.
something, right?
For instance, you might know technically the diagnosis for your back, but you don't necessarily know that this machine is going to put a lot of stress on the back. So, and that's the type of stuff. That's where my style of personal trainer comes in, or like me, because that's the type of thing I'm trying to be very aware of.
Okay. I want to step back a little bit. When you injured yourself, and like you said, you found a golf ball size, black and blue golf ball right here in your arm. What was your emotional state? What you went through at that time?
Well, in the overall range of human suffering, it's not that big a deal. And at the time, I was a dad and I had kids, so you can only get so, you can only make it so dramatic. However, as a fitness person, and as someone who took pride in their physique, as well as pride in knowing what they were doing, to have a black and blue golf ball over here and a deformed looking triceps on the other side, and to spend say 3 or 4 months somewhat disabled, or at least for the type of stuff I wanted to do. Again, not in the overall sense, but that's pretty alarming.
It is.
Makes you wonder, like, did I know what I thought I knew? Well, I didn't. What I thought I knew wasn't that good.
Well, we all learn from our experiences.
Well, you know what? Hopefully, though, but I hear a lot of stories of people get injured working out, get treatment, get rehabilitated, and go right back to the thing that injured them in the first place without filtering it so that it doesn't happen again.
Okay.
I just prefer not to do that.
I heard you say disabled. Did that upset you?
Yeah, well, at the time, yes, because it was, I was training people. I had done a couple of bodybuilding competitions. I thought of myself as an athlete. So, and especially since it's a very visual.
You could feel it, see it.
It's not like a hamstring pull where you can't see it. I mean, you look in the mirror and there's the black and blue golf ball, or there was a divot. And on the back of the arm, it was all, again, black and blue with a divot. So I tended to keep it in the overall perspective of life, but in this particular arena,
It stopped you from doing what you loved to do.
well, absolutely right. And it cast doubt on what you thought you knew what you do. It cast doubt on whether you knew what you were doing in the first place.
Which led you to looking into innovative ways of joint-friendly fitness.
Well, yes. So, I mean, I didn't want to get stuck in, in generally, I don't want to get stuck in a bad moment where you just kind of wallow it and feel sorry for yourself. I mean, I guess in general, if something bad happens, fine, engage in it.
Yes. It's just not a muscle pull. let's say that way. Rupture, it wasn't just
Oh no. It was
Yeah,
it,
it's
it, wa-
not a
it was
sprain,
a, it was
yes.
a, it was a big deal. It was
Yes.
it was a thing. But my point was not to wallow in the misfortune of it, but to move forward and say, okay, what can I do to make sure, well, that I don't do it again, but also make sure I'm not doing this with my clients.
Absolutely, that's even more important for you as a trainer.
Well, and I didn't know at the time, but because I didn't set out to write a book I didn't set out to write a book or make a video or give a presentation. I was genuinely trying to figure it out for my own purposes, and then I would use it with my clients, and then I would share it with the other trainers I knew. When it took the form of a book, then other trainers across the country and even the UK and Australia, they started hearing of it.
Okay.
And then
wow.
I started getting feedback around the world, and that's when I realized, okay, there's something
worthwhile.
there's something here to pursue, not just for my little, the range of people I can directly contact.
So in the video, as you talk about the joint-friendly fitness, let's take a look at it.
When the weight is going through all the axes, it's noticeably easier to manage, or lighter. But then as soon as you bend, and now you have moment arms created, now it gets a lot harder at the bottom. Right here, this is the cleanest path for the arm to move. There's no ligament binding, there's no anatomic stop. So if they're going to pull down, it'd be with like a parallel grip here, and then, again, thank you, not back here, but from about here. I see now that loading the joints in an excessive range is a major mistake. It adds completely unnecessary wear and tear to your joints, which, combined with normal life wear and tear, almost inevitably leads to some kind of injury.
Talk a little bit about those joint-friendly fitness that came out as a result of this video.
Well, that video is a demonstration of how we do those exercises in my studio.
Okay.
And if you watch it, you notice everything is very slow and under control, and there's no extreme joint positions.
Okay.
Now, previous to the work I had done, the homework I had done, I may have moved the weights faster. I may have got a good stretch with the weight, which is generally not a good thing.
Okay.
Stretching the muscle and stretching the joint are two different things. Stretching the muscle is okay. Stretching the joint with the weight's a bad idea. So when people compare what's in that video with what they see in the gyms, they say, well, that's not what I see every day. So, and that's why I opened my own studio, so I could practice it the way I wanted to practice without having that distraction.
And your studio, Optimal Exercise in Cranberry, New Jersey.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So now in the studio with the people who are training with me, I'm not necessarily explaining the biomechanics of every exercise because they don't have any bad examples to copy. But when I give a talk, for instance, to other trainers or at a seminar, now I'm explaining why I don't move the joint in this position, or I explain what joint elements we're trying to avoid.
Okay. So what kind of clients seek for this type of joint-friendly fitness?
Well, it used to be a 15-year range of my age, but I'm moving to the top of that, so now it's... So now it's...
Is it just age-related, or because people develop maybe joint pain, arthritis, or sports injuries, or...
Hurt. When people start to hurt, they become very receptive.
Okay.
Now, I notice in the studio, the age goes from 30s to about 70.
Okay.
I think part of that is because the time it becomes an issue, especially in the suburbs where people have families, people have jobs, and so the fact of the appointment is very helpful to them getting on a regular exercise program.
Okay, and knowing the right thing to do.
Well, and that's the second part is, and now that they're showing up, they're comfortable with me giving them the right thing to do.
Okay.
Because plenty of people join gyms, but number one, if they don't have an appointment to go, they may drop out. And then once they get there, there's an overwhelming amount of equipment and an overwhelming amount of exercises that they see, and they're not sure where to start.
Where to start? They're on their own to make their own decision.
Or like yourself, they say, well, wait a minute, should I do that? Wait, I had a back injury, I had a shoulder injury. I'm not sure if and so it becomes more confusing than helpful. So in the studio, the age range is like 35 to 70, and it's not, a lot of people former physical therapy patients.
Okay.
So they had been injured, they want to stay in shape, but they don't want to get injured again.
Okay.
Some people are former athletes, or they've been exercising on their own, and then usually around age 40, all of a sudden they realize, gee, something hurts.
Something hurts.
It's amazing. It happens around age 40 that you realize things hurt.
So tell me a little bit, people like myself who find every excuse not to exercise,
Right.
what kind of joint-friendly exercise would be helpful for them? Because my not seeking to go into a gym, main reason is my back hurts.
Well, for
I
instance,
do not want to injure myself. That's my excuse.
In general, well, for someone like yourself, where you had an injury, you really have to try things and see how. First of all, I'll try things that I know won't involve the back.
Okay.
To see how you tolerate it. So, for instance, a treadmill might work well for you, unless it doesn't. And then you try the recumbent bike, where you're sitting down and your back is supported. So there's a little bit of trial and error, but what you don't do is you don't go too hard. This way you can stop it if it causes a problem.
I see.
For yourself, again, somebody with a back problem, you're definitely going to stay away from a barbell. Because barbells, by definition, they're very challenging to protect your joints with it. And for some people, that's part of the appeal. But if you've already injured your back, you don't want to take a chance on injuring the back. And then, again, also in general, you do want to try to stretch.
Okay. I like what you wrote, the part of the process as a trainer. You have to pay attention to the 4 areas. Okay, let's talk about it.
Okay. So the first one, the awareness of the pre-existing condition.
Yes.
So every trainer usually gives a person a health history.
Yes.
At which point the person forgets to put things on the health history. So after you fill out the health history, then I say, have you injured your ankles? Have you injured your knees? And I work my way up through all your joints. And sometimes people will say, oh yes, I did injure my back in a car accident, my shoulder playing sports, whatever. But sometimes even then they forget. And so now you have to pay attention. So when the person's doing an exercise that should be safe, if they're wincing or if their joint is moving a certain way, I'll usually stop them and say, what's going on over here? And then I'll say, oh yes, by the way, I also did this. So the trainer has to be attuned to the fact that just because the person came into them and looks healthy, there might be something going on that they just forgot, or it's a long time ago, or they think it's none of your business. I had one person who was diabetic who didn't tell me.
Oh. Okay.
And they didn't tell me on the health history either. And I said, and when I finally found out, I said, why didn't you tell me? He said, well, it's not none of your business. Well, no, actually it is. You're exercising, and that does affect your blood sugar levels.
Yes.
So the first thing the trainer has to be is they have to know that the client may not have the vocabulary, or the client may not think it's relevant.
Okay.
To go through what the condition of their joints are, the health is. Right. I mean, you can get in shape with relatively moderate effort compared to an extreme effort all the time.
I see.
The extreme effort doesn't sell commercials and doesn't look all that dramatic. I'm sorry, the extreme effort does sell commercials and is very dramatic looking, but it's just not necessary.
It's not necessary.
So
I
for,
agree.
So for somebody who's looking to get in shape, who's leery because they don't want to hurt themselves more, what I'm trying to do is say, yes, that's fine. That is doable. It doesn't have to be like a beer commercial or a
I
CD
get
commercial.
it. I get it. So, and book people can find in Amazon?
Yes, Congruent Exercise is on Amazon in print and in Kindle.
Okay.
And in fact, the video is from the Kindle version of the book.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So
Okay.
in print, there are photographs of the beginning and finished position of each exercise. The Kindle didn't take that too well when I did it, so instead I have a link and it takes you to the video of the exercise.
Okay. And the website, we have it right here for our viewers. Well, I thank you so much for coming to share your personal experiences and how it led to a more joint-friendly fitness, which has been practiced by trainers and many others, ordinary people around the world. But thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I am host Ritu Chopra, and you are watching Despite the Challenges here at Princeton Community Television. Until next time, bye-bye.